Okay, we're back on the Mercedes, and as you can see, I got the grill mounted. That is the actually we tried to get the chrome piece there from Model Motor Cars, but they were out of stock, sold out. So the client found one on eBay, and it was just a simple matter of clamping it to the black radiator piece and then putting CA around the edge of the grill and radiator piece, radiator part. And then this part here, that edge covers that seam all the way around. So it's a nice, clean, neat install. Looks pretty good. And one thing that's not too easy, at least for me, not too easy, is getting that thing positioned just right. Now if I take a square here and I put that in front like that, then I eyeball down the front, looking at that front seam, that looks perfectly square. And when I put this here and eyeball that edge to it, that looks square. So as best as I can tell, it is square this way and it's square this way. Up and down, basically there's like a screw and a bracket down here. If you loosen that screw, this will shift up or down a few millimeters. I have it shoved up far enough to where the hood panel does not contact the air cleaner box here. If I go up any more, it's going to really stress out the hoses, which those hoses, man, they really don't fit very well at all. I'm not liking how the hoses are there. What I might do later, if it bugs me enough, I might get a heat gun with a tiny little tip on it and just heat the elbows on here and here just to kind of flex those up a little bit so the hoses line up a little bit better. And as you can see, I got the hose clamps on there from the Model Motor Cars hose clamp set. Got a couple left. And so this is all looking okay so far. Now, as far as adjusting it, I set the hood panels on to adjust fore and aft, but the gaps are all off. The side panels pretty much fit perfect, so I know front to back it's positioned pretty well. I also took a dial caliper and measured from here to here, compared that with here to here. It's within half a millimeter, give or take, a little bit less than half a millimeter maybe. But the side panels, the two side panels are fitting almost perfectly. It's just the top panels here that are giving me problems. And this tape is just here so I don't scratch the black paint when I take the body on and off. I'll mention that tape here later. But while I was in the process of trying to get this stuff together and fit it, and the client contacted me and said he sent me some photos of the real car and how there's like chrome, like where I put that tape there would be a chrome strip on the fenders, plus a chrome strip back here, plus a chrome strip that goes here, across the door, here, and across the hood. And he wanted all those chrome strips installed. And of course, Pocher, well, they only include the chrome strips back here. They don't include those. So I'm thinking, yeah, I could probably cut those out of brass and have them chrome plated. And then I'm thinking, well, that's probably not going to match the luster or the lack of luster of the Pocher chrome pieces that they supply for the back here. So the plan is I'm going to make all of those trim pieces out of brass and take them to my local chrome plater. And when I say local chrome plater, he's about a 45-minute drive away. And I already contacted those guys, or that guy. I talked to one guy. I'm sure he's not the only one that works there. But I contacted him. We talked about how, at first he was like, well, I have to be able to hold all those little parts, because I sent him photos of everything that I would send him. And he goes, I don't know if I'm going to be able to hold all those little parts. And I'm like, well, I would solder them to a brass wire tree. And he goes, oh yeah, that would work. So talk, because they don't normally do small parts like this. They normally do like antique restorations, like bigger components, bigger parts. So when I told him that I was going to polish all of the pieces and solder them all to a brass wire tree. Then he was fully, able to, said he would be able to help. So I'm going to put all of the Pocher parts. I got a bag of these Pocher trim pieces here, the ones they supplied. I'll put all of those on their own tree, and all of my brass pieces on a separate tree, and they'll chrome plate my brass pieces first, and if they don't match close enough, then they'll chrome plate all of the Pocher parts, so now all the chrome will match. Now all of these that I just showed in that bag, these are actually plated brass. I don't know if it's chrome or nickel, but I'm pretty sure that the parts that I make that they chrome plate are going to be a lot shinier and chromier than this, probably. So they'll probably have to re-chrome those. The front here, this is actually some kind of a steel. This is not plated, this is steel. It might be some type of stainless. It is very, very slightly magnetic, just a little bit magnetic. Now I did polish that up a little bit here with some metal polish, and that does polish up very nicely. But this piece here, that might be good enough here. That's actually really chromy and shiny looking. But before I can really get started on the chrome pieces, and my first thought was I need to cut all those out and file them and sand them to shape and send it off for chrome plating, because I don't know how long it's going to take. But since there is one that goes here on the hood, I'm thinking I really need to get the hood panels fit properly, because if I cut that chrome strip out and then I tweak the hood panels, I'll explain why they're half black here in a minute, and then I tweak the hood panels, then that chrome strip might not fit very well. I mean, I'm sure it would probably be fine, but sometimes when you're doing something that's a little bit critical, if you use the word probably, or if you use the word should, that should kind of be a red flag to just kind of pause and say, okay, let me rethink it. I don't want to take any chance, so I need to get the hood panels fit perfectly as possible, and then start cutting out the chrome or the brass pieces to be chrome plated for that. So that's what I'm going to start now, is getting the hood panels set, ready to go. And so let me put my camera somewhere, well, at the normal camera spot, and then we'll take a look at those. We'll take a look at those pieces. Okay, so when you look at the hood panels, the bottom edge here is pretty much perfectly straight, flat. I mean, there is a curve this way, but I want to make sure I don't mess up that edge here. Again, if you put a straight edge, on there, that's the flat I'm talking about right there. To get these hood panels to fit, when you put these on, the curve on the front does not match the curve of the grill. So my first thought was to get a heat gun on this and just bend it to match that curve. But if I bend that around, if I heat it and bend it, well, what's that going to do to this edge right here? It's probably going to lower that edge. So now that edge is going to curve this way. Now that's how I fixed the left hood panel on the previous Mercedes that I did a few years ago. But it didn't fit as bad as this one fits. And even though I heated it and bent it, I got it to fit here. Well, that kind of did. I did notice that just pushed the fit issues down to the side panel. And right now the side panel pretty much fits perfect. I don't want to mess with that. So I don't want to take any chances of messing this up. So there's a few other options. I could do what I did with the right-hand hood panel of that previous Mercedes, and that's to literally like cut strips along here. So just cut a lot of long strips here, and then you have a whole bunch of like fingers, and you can push those down to the right shape and rebond it all together. So that's probably what I'm gonna do. I could also add material here, not Bondo or anything. It would be strips of styrene sheet, solvent welded to the bottom, and then just sand the top until I get the right profile. And right now that top edge is sticking above the chrome radiator piece here, so I would need extra material because it would sand into that other material here. So add some thickness here, take it off the top to get the right profile, or cut strips, glue it all back together. Either way is going to be a lot of work and a little bit of body work. So we'll just kind of play it by ear as we go. You'll notice I've got the hinge bonded onto this side here already. And the hinge goes on with these little nubbins that are sticking up. I guess we could call them rivets, because what you do is you take a soldering iron, or well, they say a screwdriver over a candle flame, heat it up, and then you just kind of melt those down, and it forms rivets that hold those on. I do not trust just those. I will be melting them down later, but I don't trust just those. If those start to break, which I'm sure they very easily could, then the hinge is going to start getting loose. So I also epoxied it on. I need to clean it up a little bit. I use JB Weld. I just put a very, very tiny amount on the edge, and to bond that on so all the little rivets will hold it in the correct position, and to secure it, the JB Weld will just strengthen that and make sure that, you know, nothing starts coming loose later on in the future. Now, when you apply this to the hinge, the inside, I don't know if I can show this very well, but that inside corner right in here is kind of rounded, and the part on the hood where it goes on is square, so you need to round off that corner right here. That way it'll set nicely into that folded edge of the hinge. The reason why this is black is because this car will be black when it's done. Obviously the plastic is red, so I just sprayed black on this edge. That way, since I'm going to be bonding it on here now, I'll have less chances of having any red plastic showing. I thought that would make it easier for painting it later when it's all done. So that's kind of the plan. The tape is here so I don't get a huge mess of JB Weld out onto here, which it's going to get sanded off anyway, so it shouldn't matter too much. But so I need to get this bonded together, and the side panels I want to temporarily fit. Now, one thing about the side panels, if you look at this edge this way, it is very slightly curved this way. Now, the side panels are straight, but they're very flexible, they're very bendy, but I want to make sure the side panel will maintain that curve. So what I did for these side panels, I found a strip of steel. I don't know where it came from. It was in my little spare small metal bits parts box. I bent it to match the curve of the hood, and then I JB welded and clamped it to this piece here. So now this has a set curve in it that will match the hood panel curve, and I don't have to worry about it bending or flopping or getting out of shape. So that is pretty much set exactly where it needs to go here. And again, this pretty much fits perfect right in here. I might need to add a little bit of material on that edge. The other side actually fits much better. It's pretty much a near perfect fit. This is probably a 98% good fit. But I need to temporarily attach the hinges here and here. It's really kind of hard to fit these on if they keep falling apart. So I'll probably permanently mount the hinges here, and then just use a little dot of hot glue to attach it temporarily to this piece. That way I can fit them without them falling apart. And when I get them fit, I can pop the hot glue loose and put them on for real. But first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and bond this one on, and then we'll get back with you and see how the fit goes. So yeah, I wanted to show this before I bonded it on, just to show that edge and how it's helpful to kind of sand that edge over. Also, if you do choose to use epoxy to put these hinges on, you got to make sure you don't put on very much, because if it oozes out this way into the hinge, you're kind of screwed. If it oozes out over here, that's fine, you can clean it up. So when I put the JB Weld on, I put it more on this edge where the tape is, and I didn't really put any along here. I just let it squeeze out towards that way. But again, not so much that it starts going into the hinge. And which I did a little bit It wasn't so much that it locked it up, but I did get a little bit of ooze out right in here. I cleaned most of it up. I got to go in and fine clean that up a little bit better before I do final paint. But the hinge is still moving fine, so that's fine. So like I said, let me get this bonded on. Let me get the side panels temporarily installed, and then we'll just see how it fits, and we'll go from there. Okay, before I go any further here, I just wanted to point out where those hinges go here. I cut out a little square of styrene and bonded it in place. That's not focusing, but that gives much better support to the hinge. Where's the hinge? Because you'll notice the hinge, it's going to sit in like that, so it needs to be spaced up a bit to make room for the hinge. So with that installed, like that. Now the kit piece had a little raised section. The kit piece had a little raised section, but it was just a small little round raised section that didn't give really any support to the hinge. So by adding that little piece of plastic, I now have a full support area for that hinge. That will help it stay in place while I'm fitting everything, and hopefully it'll help it last longer and not want to break over time. Now that little plastic peg sticking out will still get heat melted down, and the hinge will get epoxied or glued to that plastic piece. But I wanted to show that before I paint it, because the next step is to paint all of the inside of here flat black. I want to do that before I put the hinges on, and I was afraid you wouldn't be able to see that very well, or I wouldn't be able to show that very well after I painted it and glued the hinges on. So basically I just traced out that shape, pilot drilled it with a little drill, which may or may not be how I stabbed a hole in my finger. Remember, safety first. Make sure you wear your eye protection when you're drilling holes in your finger. And so I drilled it with that first, and then I just opened it up to the right size. I just have a little handheld chuck with the right size drill in it. And then bonded them in place, and that should make for a much more secure fitting for the hinges. So again, I'm going to paint those, bond the hinges on, and then finally we can get started actually getting the hood to fit. All right, so I've got this together. I've got that bonded. I've got the little plastic rivets melted down. One thing I'll tell you, when you're doing that, I use a soldering iron, but I put a piece of aluminum foil over it, and then I put the soldering iron over the aluminum foil. I've got the hinges bonded onto the flaps, and then the little points there melted down. Where it attaches to the hood, that's just temporary with hot glue melt, and that's easy to pull off when I need to. I will be taking that off later. Right now it's just on for trial fitting. Now, I was debating on whether I really wanted to mount all of this together the way I did, because on the previous Mercedes I did, I didn't put anything together till after I had each piece fit, which eventually worked. But when I was first trying to fit these just by taping all the pieces together, it didn't fit that bad, and I'm thinking, well, this isn't that bad, it'll work okay. I'm glad I did all this, because once I got all this mounted, the hinges and the actual positions, yeah, the fit is worse than I thought. Now, one thing I had to do first, I noticed that this part of the body was shifted that way a little bit too far. There's actually a gap right in here and right in here, and I could actually push that over. So what I did was I made some styrene spacers that were of equal thickness that would slide into those gaps. So now this is perfectly centered on this. I believe that to be important when trying to fit the hood, because if this is shifted and you're trying to fit the hood, well, that's going to throw everything off. And I will more than likely just bond those styrene strips in permanently when I take the body off next. That way that'll hold that in line, because before you could actually move that back and forth quite a bit. So now when we try to put this on, like I said, the fit is not good. Looking at the gap, yeah, that's my My finger hole is getting better, but yeah, that's from that finger hole. Anyways, so the gap on the back edge here isn't horrible. There's a bigger gap here and here than there is in the middle. That's easily fixed. Adding strips of styrene, then sanding it to fit better. The front is a whole nother story though. The front, it's like the corner here and here fits tighter, but there's a bigger gap in the middle, so that'll need to be rectified. But the biggest problem is that each hood panel is kind of twisted up this way, which is taking the side panels and kind of kicking them forward. Because again, remember I said that side panel fit perfect until I mounted it to the hood. Now that hood is kind of pulling it up and moving it. Let me see if I can move the camera to a better angle so you can see that. I guess you can see that here, how that corner is overlapping here. I mean, it's almost there here, but it's overlapping here, and there's a big gap. There's a big gap right in here. Whereas when it's not connected to the panel, that fits in there perfect. But again, that front corner of the hood is warped up, pulling this whole thing, twisting it forward. So I need to get that down, which would push that down and back. And of course you can notice how big that gap is there in the front. So the other side's not as bad. But I think what I need to do to fix this, if I cut a slit from about here almost all the way back, this section here should then be able to push down. Of course, that'll open up a big gap down there, but that would be easier to fix than that. At least that's what I'm thinking. Now, I mentioned before using heat. I could heat all that up with a heat gun, bend it back down, and that could work, but it seems like every time I try to use heat, well, I shouldn't say every time, but sometimes when I've tried to use heat to persuade parts into position, sometimes it works, other times it just causes more problems. So right now I'm leaning towards splitting the hood. Again, just splitting it almost all the way back, pushing that down where it needs to go, and then making another split, make another slit, so then that center section could bend down, rejoin those three pieces then, and go from there. I think that's my best choice. So here's after the first cut, and I went back to maybe almost an inch to the end. But now you can see, and that's just gravity that moved it back into place. Now you can see how much better that fits. I mean, it wants to fit right there. So, but as I said, obviously there's going to be a larger gap open up, but all I need to do is cut another strip here back, allow that to come down, and then I'll have two seams, maybe a third. Yeah, I think one more cut should be enough. And move that down. I might have to put a little bit of a relief coming in this way to allow that to twist down. But just look how much nicer that edge is right here. I mean, it's almost perfect now. So yeah, so that's the process. Just cut that, bend it down, rebond those seams back together, and just a little bit of filler and sanding, and should be good to go. So yeah, let me get the hood done. We'll get back with you once the hood's all fitted nicely, and then we can start cutting strips of brass to make all those chrome accents. Okay, the hood is almost fitting pretty well. It looks like a mess now, but you know, that's fine. That'll look fine. It'd be kind of like walking in on a loved one during brain surgery. You know, it'd look horrendous at first. You just got to wait till it's done. Anyway, so what I did was, like I said, I cut it a few times, pushed everything down into shape, which is fitting quite well now. And then I just glued on some pieces of styrene strip to hold it. And once that was set, I could then take it off and fill in the cuts with some filler, what I did was I took some sprue that the plastic parts came from, and I kind of shaved that up into some little strips, put that in a jar, and then put some of this solvent in there and melted it down into a goo. And then I put that into the cut seams. And so once that dries, it's like one solid piece of plastic now. And it's just as, just as solid and sturdy as what it was before. So that's now one solid piece. It's not like pieces glued together. It's literally a solid piece of its own original plastic. What I did here, I tried gluing in some strips. That was kind of pointless. That needs to be sanded down more. But I think that was kind of a waste of time. I don't think that really did anything for me. But that needs to get sanded down more. That needs to get sanded down smooth. So once those are all sanded down nice and smooth, that'll all get painted, and you'll never know it ever happened. And of course on the edge here, I put a strip of styrene along this way. And again, that'll be smoothened up and prettied up a lot more. Now this is almost fitting. The front edge right here is fitting a little tight right down here. And I can get it to fit. I can push that down so it fits nice. But it kind of pushes up the back corner here a little bit. So the next step now, I need to trim off any edge that's hitting hard on another edge, keeping it from just sitting perfectly down. So that's the front edge here, a little bit back up in here, and then that should sit down perfectly flat and flush. Then I can start filling in gaps, like right up here, and there's a gap down here and back here and along the bottom, and that'll just be filled in with strips of styrene and just to fill the gap in, and then it should be sitting all nice and flush. So anyways, I was really hoping to start cutting out some brass strips in this video, but I have a feeling that this video is getting to be way too long already as it is. So, because this is going to take several more hours of work to get it just right. And then after that, I'll start cutting out some brass. And besides, I'm still waiting for, he ordered a new windshield frame that goes here. I really need that windshield frame because there's a brass strip that goes here. I don't know how that's going to interfere with the new windshield frame, so I really need that to figure that out. That might be an issue. So I need this. Hopefully I get that in a couple of days. Hopefully by the time I'm done with the hood, I'll have that piece. And then we can, next video, we'll start cutting out some brass pieces to send out for chrome plating, which I'm kind of excited about doing that. Never done that before, so that'll be interesting to see how that goes. So I'm going to end it here. Next video, we're cutting some brass. I know I said that I was done with this video and next video would be cutting some brass pieces, but I was laying in bed last night trying to get to sleep, and all of a sudden it hit me. Now, I'm not one to say I told you so, but I must have told my wife 2 or 3 times that that was not the way to hang a mirror from the ceiling. So when I very first started fitting the hood panels, I even said that the sides fit almost perfect. And cutting the slits here got this edge here down to match the curve here pretty much perfect. So the hood panels now fit pretty much perfect. The side panels fit pretty much perfect. But yet when they're all connected, when I push the hood panels down in place, the side panels push out. When I push the side panels in place, the hood pops up. So it's like it's all fighting each other. So what I really need to do now, I believe, I'm 96% sure, what I really need to do now is I need to cut about right here all the way off. Yeah, maybe not there. Maybe like there. Saving the hinges. Oops, sorry, not in view there. Saving the hinges. So that would be almost where I cut before. So right there, cutting that completely off, saving the hinge piece. And then what I can do is take the side piece and put it on the side exactly where it needs to go. Tape it in place so it can't move. Maybe even a couple of dots of CA that's easily chipped off and sanded off. That would be fine. To hold it perfectly in place. Of course, do the same on this side. And then put the center pieces here in place, taped or glued perfectly in place. So now everything's perfectly in place. And then where I cut it, fill that in, plastic weld it together with a soldering iron and some sprue material as filler. Plastic weld it all back together. Sand it smooth. Fill in any low points with my plastic melty goop here. Sand it back smooth. And that should be perfect. That should give me the perfect fit that I need. And if not, I mean, what's the worst that could happen, right? I mean, I buy new hood panels on eBay. I've seen them for 20 or 30 bucks. So worst case scenario, just start over. Or just build it from scratch out of fiberglass or something. I don't know. I mean, people have done that before. It's not unheard of. But that should pull that in perfect. That should work. So let me cut those, put them in, glue them, and then I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Also, I got some parts in last night. Check out these beauties from Model Motor Cars. These are the new side posts that go on the side for the windshield, and center post that goes into center. That requires quite a bit of buildup, but right there, that piece right here that goes along here, I need to get that mounted so I know where to put the chrome trim along the side here. So that's going to be part of the next video when I'm cutting out the brass pieces for the chrome trim. So this is coming up next video, getting the new Model Motor Cars windshield put in, cutting some brass for the chrome, and I'm rambling again, so I'm going to stop talking and get to this. So be back here in just a minute. Okay, I am a horrible YouTuber. I managed to do all the important work and not get any video of it. Anyways, what I did, I cut the hood all the way off right here down the middle, like I said earlier, and here. And then with these sides attached, so now with those two sides attached, I had one piece with the side and a little bit of a flap here. I had the other side with a little bit of a flap, and I had a center piece here. And then I could put those pieces on and hold them in position. What I did was I cut some little plastic tabs, and I would just CA them to the side like that, and then CA it to the side of the body, and that would hold this flush with the body. I did that on the sides, and I did it at the top here, and here, and here, and here. That would hold the back edge and the sides perfectly flush with the body here. The front edge, well, it kind of just fell into place, so I just taped it around to hold it. And then with it all held in place, I took my soldering iron. I know this is not a soldering iron, but I took my soldering iron, and I put it at a low heat, and I basically just kept turning it up until it started melting the plastic. And with the soldering iron, I would just kind of melt and push the plastic from one side to the other, then work it back, and just kind of keep doing that. I would tack a little bit here, then tack a little bit, kind of like real welding. You tack a few spots, then you go in and fill it in. And that's what I did. And then, to fill in the low points, I went back to my little melty stuff. Again, this is the actual sprue material from the kit, melted in solvent, and this gives you a really nice filler material. I mean, look at that. And that's a little bit thicker. It does start to dry in the jar. It's a little bit thicker. That would still work pretty well though, but I'm going to have to add more solvent to that. And I just take a bunch of that, and I brush it over the soldering iron welds just to fill it in a little bit better. And And then I did the same on the back side. Did the exact same thing on the back side. And then, to help me sand it, I just cut a piece of foam. So that'll set on top of it. Obviously, I took the sides off so they wouldn't be in the way, because I didn't have to do any cutting with the sides. They're good. I will have to add a little bit of styrene strip to the edges, on some of the edges, to fill in some gaps, but that's all I'll have to do to the side pieces. So with this on a foam block on a bench, I can go in with sanding sticks, sanding blocks, and sand that nice and smooth. So now this fits pretty much perfect. Obviously, there's some work I have to do in the front here. So I will still have to trim up the front, add some styrene strips to the front to fill in the gaps. But the curve matches here, the curve matches here, about 99%. With filler and sanding, I can get it pretty good. So the more I use this, the less I'll have to do with just body filler. So once I'll sand that smooth, I should just have a little bit of low points for the body filler, and then sand that smooth. And then finally, I can finish the hood and then start working on the chrome accents. So as I said about, I don't know, 10 minutes ago, this video is getting too long. I'm going to end it. When we come back, the hood should be at least in primer and ready to start cutting some brass strips. So, as I said before, for real this time. Actually, real quick here, let me interrupt. I just wanted to show it one last time before I finally end. This is with it pretty much all sanded down. I've got the white styrene trim in the front here, and I had to add a little bit back here. That red you see there is just the, again, the melty plastic filler that I put in there. And it still needs a little bit of sanding, but this is ready for the filler. But as you can see, it's not going to need very much body filler at all. If we take a look at the bottom, there's the bottom surface. It's going to be just as smooth as the top, but I just wanted to show the plastic, the styrene pieces I had to put in the front and the back edge, just to get it to fit nice and tight with the gaps. And got a nice curve fitting here, nice back here. So this is ready for fill, sand, and primer, and then I'll start cutting the brass. So again, that'll be, like I said, when I come back to the next video, this will be all smooth and primered, and we'll be cutting some brass. So back to what I was starting to say earlier. As always, thanks for watching.